Welcome to the Adventurous Ageing Podcast, and I'm your host, Rachael Woolston. This is where we challenge the idea that getting older means slowing down or settling for less. If you want a body and a life that keeps up with you, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Michaela Breeze, GB and Commonwealth Olympic weightlifter, who spent her career redefining the narrative around what is possible as a woman. We get into what it really takes to reach your potential, pushing limits, finding your edge, and what she's learned from pushing too far, and how her life has evolved from chasing performance to building strength, energy, and longevity for life. If you've been wondering what you're still capable of, this one will really inspire you. I'm delighted to be joined on the Adventurous Ageing Podcast by Michaela Breeze, who's represented Great Britain in the Olympics and Commonwealth Games and Olympic weightlifting. So tell me, you're 46 now. So what were you like as a little girl? Would you have expected yourself to have ended up where you are now?
Absolutely not. I think if you look back, I was a little bit rebellious as a youngster, always getting into trouble, messing around. I think things for me changed quite a lot when my parents separated. I was 9 years of age. I ended up moving down to Cornwall, lived in Padstow, which is where I then spent from age 9 till about 18 growing up. And it was, I want to say, quite isolating. It was very different. It was it's just so different from where I'd been brought up just outside Watford. And I think as an individual, I changed quite a lot. I became a little bit more withdrawn, but at the same time found myself in a little bit of trouble at school and just messing around, really. And as a 13-year-old, I was given an opportunity to have a go at weightlifting. We turned up to a PE lesson. The female teacher was away, and one of the guys, Dave Allen, stepped in and he said, "Right, girls, we're going to do weightlifting." And at that point, as a 13-year-old female in the 90s, we just didn't know what that was. We assumed it was lifting weights, but we had no other idea. I'd never seen it before. I'd never had a go. I'd never watched it on TV. And that was my exposure. That was my first opportunity to have a go. And at the end of that PE lesson, Mr. Allen pulled us to one side, myself and another friend, said, "Right, girls, you were fairly good at that. Do you want to do a competition at the weekend?" And I went home and I said to my mum, I said, "Right, I'm going to do a weightlifting competition." And she said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yes, I am." We had a small disagreement. Anyway, come the Saturday morning, I ended up cycling to the competition because Mum wouldn't drive me, and then came away with a trophy. And I think after that, Mum kind of realised that, all right, she wants to do this. And it wasn't, even then, I want to be a weightlifter. It was, I want to do a bit of weight training to get stronger, to be more powerful for athletics, which was my main sport at the time. I was doing okay with long jump and sprinting, and that's kind of how it started. And around the same age, I started doing Taekwondo. And after coming home a couple of weeks of doing that, I asked Mum, "Can you buy me a suit?" And she said, "No, because you won't stick with it." And I remember storming up the stairs. And when I got to my bedroom, I slammed the door. And I remember shouting back, "Just you wait and see, I'm going to get my black belt." And that was it, really. 5 years later, I got my black belt. And then I quit. That's kind of me as a youngster. I was pig-headed, a little bit stubborn, but when I had a go at something and when I found something that I enjoyed, I would almost become obsessed with it to a point where I wanted to be the best. And that's how my weightlifting career started. And as a youngster, I think age about 14 or 15, I was selected for my first youth international competitions. And I rose through the ranks then till about age 18 when I hit number one at senior level. So that's kind of where I was at as a youngster.
Yeah. So it sounds like always a determination to prove yourself and to prove others wrong. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think somebody said to me, "You couldn't run a marathon." I did. I only did it just to, show that it was possible to train the body in different ways. And sometimes I get myself in trouble and I do think, why have I taken on this challenge? But I think part of being female in a male-dominated sport and constantly battling, and that is probably how I would describe my career, is just a battle, an uphill struggle against male power. And I still do feel like women absolutely can in anything. It's just a case of put your mind to it and work hard. And even now I'm doing a barn conversion, and I am getting stuck in and doing the work that you would maybe expect a guy to do. And I've had a couple of guys come in and I'm like, nah, not like that. This is how we're going to do it. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not afraid to get stuck in. I'm not afraid to give it a go. And I'm not afraid to do something different. So weightlifting at the time was very different. Now it's been popularized by CrossFit, but at the time, women didn't lift weights.
And what was that like when you were, particularly when you were younger? You know, I mean, I played a lot of like basketball, which was a male sport at that time, and you get loads of like, you know, terrible narrative around it. And weightlifting, I can imagine even more so. I mean, to be taught it at school is just unbelievable. It just wasn't around. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was exactly what I just said, a battle. It was a fight all the time. And every day it was like, oh, weightlifting, what's that? Oh, women don't lift weights. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And I think I've just gone out of my way to prove that women can. And I still do that now. And it's very much a case of, if a guy can do it, we can do it. And I'm not going to accept any different. And if it means I've got to work harder to prove people wrong, then that's what I'll do. And I think, it's very much a pig-headed, stubborn mindset, but they were also the traits that I guess helped me to achieve what I did.
Yeah. And as you've grown up, do you think the mindset around the confidence to lift heavier has changed in a way? Do you, reflecting back, feel almost that it was easier when you were younger and it's harder now?
In what way? Do you mean, so I'm listening to that question in two ways. One is, when I started lifting, the biggest weights that women were lifting were around 100 kilos. As I guess I've pushed the barriers and shown that women can do more and more, and that's opened the way. It's almost trailblazed the way for others to follow and then push even further. Is that what you mean by that question?
Yeah, I suppose let's break it down to, like, as you were growing up and you had to keep lifting heavier, what was the mindset when you were younger, or did you not have, or when you were younger, was it just a case of like, you just did it because part of that youth, you don't know, do you?
You don't know what's possible. I think I was exposed to training with the national senior team, as it were, when I was, I want to say about 14 or 15. I used to go to Bisham Abbey. Mum would put me on a coach in Cornwall. I'd catch the National Express to London Heathrow. Dad would pick me up from there, drop me to Bisham Abbey, and I'd stay there the Friday night, Saturday night, 4 sessions with the seniors. So from that age, I was exposed to, I guess, what the best lifters in the country were lifting at that time. And that was my aspiration. That's what I wanted to try and get towards. And it was just chip away. You know, I was down here and they were up there, and it was chip away, chip away, chip away. And when looking at, and that was looking at all of the weight categories, but I was quite light. So actually very quickly I caught up with the senior lifters in my category and went past them. And then it was like, can I get closer to those weights that those girls are lifting? And before I knew it, I was outlifting all of them. And that then was like, okay, what now? And I think I was ranked number 1 as an 18-year-old. And then I think pivotally, I plateaued. I stopped improving. And it was almost like I'd seen that's where I could get to. And I got there and then stopped improving. And it wasn't through lack of trying. I was training hard. I was training conscientiously. I mean, this is before we knew a huge amount about, you know, diet, nutrition, supplements, recovery, and everything else that we now know. So I was doing the best I could and I was working really hard, but I just couldn't progress. And it was then that I made certain changes in my career, and I had to look beyond what was going on in Britain and look to some of the best in Europe, some of the best in the world, and almost have that as my new goal, that as my aspiration. And my mindset then, partly through changing coaches, was very much a no limits mindset. And that's now on our kit as well. And just to have that belief that I could do anything if I first believed it.
Yeah. And then talking about, when did you have your back injury? Because that's an interesting thing, I think, particularly as you get older, as a woman or a man, like when those niggles start and how that affects your mindset and how you get through that.
Well, just remember, with any sport, the aim is to push the boundaries, to push the limits and see what you can ultimately achieve. So I guess in order for somebody to say they've really realised their potential, that they've had to push to breaking point. If you haven't pushed to breaking point, then how do you know you've pushed hard enough? And it's a knife edge. You know, you push, and then you're broken. And I remember it was the summer of 2000. I was waiting to find out if I'd qualified for the Olympic Games in Sydney. That was the first time women's weightlifting was in. And it was in the build up to that. And I was pushing my legs as hard as I could. And I was following a Russian squat program. And in hindsight, maybe we shouldn't try copying what the Russians are doing on many levels. And I would openly say that. I mean, I ended up pushing, and I think it was a back squat, 95% intensity for 3 sets of 3 is what I was attempting. I built up to that over a few weeks.
Yeah.
And long story short, I stood partway up with a squat and my back went bang. Sudden, severe, debilitating pain. I was out for, it took me 18 months from the day that moment that injury happened until I regained full fitness. It knocked me out of the Olympic Games. I didn't qualify anyway. I would have been top 15 in the world that were invited, and I was joint 15th. They separated us on body weight, and I was 0.1 of a kilo heavier. So as it turned out, injury aside, I wouldn't have gone. But I spent 18 months then in a lot of pain. I had a bilateral pars defect, 3 compressed discs. If you imagine, for those maybe listening or watching this, if you imagine your spine, and let's keep anatomy really simple, biscuit, marshmallow. You imagine that stack of biscuits and marshmallows, that's your spine. So the biscuits are your vertebrae and the marshmallows are your discs. And basically one of my discs, my vertebrae kind of shifted, and the little wings on the side of the vertebrae that attach, which allow side bending, had cracked. So yeah, pretty debilitating pain, pretty nasty injury, put me out for a long time. But it was, I can say this now in hindsight, but it was thanks to that I then went on to have the career that I had. Without that injury, I would probably never have taken that step back to relearn movement patterns as precisely, as specifically as I did. I would never have learned how to activate these tiny little muscles, your deep core, transverse abdominis, or multifidus, the little muscles that really stabilize the spine. And these are not muscles that you learn to gain control of overnight. These are something that take a lot of patience, a lot of frustration, and it's trying to get the brain and those very minute muscles to work together. Muscles that most people can't activate, they just don't know how to. And they were muscles that I wasn't using, that ultimately didn't help when it came to the injury. But now I've learned to activate them. I'm certainly no master of these exercises, but I've learned to stabilize my back. My back will heal. It's something I have to live with. I know what my limitations are. I know what flares it up, and I try to avoid it. Hoovering's one.
Don't do that.
I can do some, I can do building work all day. I can be physical and manual, but hoovering, for some reason, honestly, I can shovel sand. That's no problem. But you got me a hoover. There's certain exercises that I have to be careful of. And yeah, I just know what my limits are really. And if I do get a little bit of a flare up, I know how to manage it.
And how did you go into for the mindset once that had happened to go back into, because it's often something that I come across with, I've suffered something like that as well. You come across with women of a particular age who then start lifting for the first time. And that I come across is probably the number one thing that people fear that stops them actually thinking of like pushing their bodies to a point where actually they're going to get any results.
Yeah, I think there's a difference here in what we're talking about. I was training for an Olympic Games, and I was pushing my body to the point where I had to push to breaking point.
Yeah.
When we're looking at, say, particularly women, middle age, more mature, we're looking at women who have probably done a bit of research, hitting perimenopause, menopause, and gone, I need to lift heavy stuff. So how do I do that? I'm going to go in the gym and push. Wrong way to do it. Absolutely the wrong way to do it. What we want to be doing, and it's the same whether I'm coaching a youngster, whether I'm coaching an international athlete from another sport who wants to learn weightlifting, whether I'm coaching somebody who's more mature, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, regardless of age, regardless of ability, we all want to lift. We should all be wanting to lift with great technique. If you move really well, then not only are you going to be more efficient in what you're doing, you're also going to be safe. The two go hand in hand. If you are moving with good biomechanics, the injuries should stay away. And the other thing is about learning progressive loading, which is start down here, build that foundation, get that technical foundation, get super confident, super consistent with the light weights, and build gradually. That should, theoretically, in principle, keep all the injuries away. No guarantees. Obviously, we all have niggles and asymmetries and other things that can contribute to injury. But if done properly, then you shouldn't have the issues.
I think the narrative is quite interesting now around women weightlifting because, I mean, you know, CrossFit just like swept through, didn't it? I mean, it transformed the fitness world from my perspective.
It's changed the mindset massively, but CrossFit has done wonders. It's revitalised the sport. You can't even enter national championships now because there are so many people wanting to take part, and that's down to the popularity that CrossFit have given it.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm talking about how it's filtered through the fitness world. I mean, I'm a bit older than you, but I remember when you'd go to an exercise class and all that was available was like Reebok Step and silly little pink weights. I initially launched a camp called Fitbitch because I was just like, oh my God, there's just got to be more than, there's more for women than doing this thing. And CrossFit has swept through all of the fitness world. So I'm interested, like you obviously are coaching women, lots of different people all the time from different levels. For older women, are you now seeing a difference in women's belief in what they can do through a younger generation compared to an older generation, just because people are now I mean, you look at Instagram, the girls are lifting strong from a lot earlier than my generation ever did.
The talent across the board is crazy. And I think what's most notable is, and it's probably down to my age, I guess, being a female role model, I guess, who is now getting a little bit older, I find now the people coming on my camps are of similar age and older. I mean, I had somebody came on the camp last week in their 60s, and is amazing how people have grasped that lifting weights is such a huge health benefit. So the demographic of people that I'm seeing is literally youngsters right through to those in their 70s. I think the oldest I've had on a camp, I think I have had one person in their 80s. I've had a couple in 70s. I've had loads in 60s. Normally it's around 40s, 50s. But I'm actually thinking of not changing. I'll still be running the camps as I am to help people develop technically. But we are looking to put on a training camp, at least one or maybe two a year from next year, which are focused on more mature women, and looking more at the education side of it, whether to incorporate perimenopause, menopause education combined with the training. That's the way we're looking to go.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And from your own experience of, I don't know where you are in your hormone journey, have you started experience perimenopausal symptoms? And I'm interested in it from your perspective as well, because you've lifted from an early age. And I do think that, I don't know what the science is. There's probably not enough studies done yet, but I suspect that potentially, your symptoms might be slightly different because you've got more muscle mass and have done for many years.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to monitor, isn't it? Because at what age do you hit perimenopause? It's different for everyone. And then what are the symptoms? Some people don't have symptoms. Some people have terrible symptoms. And I don't know how you would monitor that and see what the benefits of lifting weights might have been. From my point of view, brain fog is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my wife, she's 10 years younger than me, and she was the one that actually pulled me aside and said, "You're going through perimenopause." And I was like, "No, I'm not." She goes, "Exactly. Look at your mood." So for me, I think it's very much a mood thing. I think there's, the forgetfulness. It's what I'm in the middle of a sentence trying to say something and I can't think of the words. That is what I'm finding frustrating. But at the same time, I'm not getting stressed with it. It is what it is. I'm just embracing it, having a giggle, going, "I'll come back to that in a minute. It will come to me in a minute."
Yeah.
I think as well, based on that, I'm a little bit more mindful that I need to pull my finger out and get back into the routine of training. I retired when I was 31. So Delhi Commonwealth Games, I was 31, retired. We set up a gym, and then I came out of retirement for my fourth Commonwealth Games at the age of 35. And that was when I first thought, on reflection, that was when I thought, age? It's just a number, because at the age of 35, I trained only 3 times a week instead of 8 to 12 sessions, which is what I was doing when I was at my fittest. And I broke my own British and Commonwealth records at the age of 35. That should not be possible. But I'll be honest with you, since then, that was 10, 11 years ago, I have become a little bit lazy in my own training. And then we had children 6 years ago.
And twin boys and a girl. Yeah.
Twin boys at the start, 3 days, but they were born 3 days before lockdown. And for me, that was when it all started falling apart. And I've got no excuse. I didn't carry. But I mean, Sinead was breastfeeding. She was incredible, breastfed exclusively twins. But I had to get up during the night to assist with the nappies and the winding. And, I think one baby you could probably get away without both being woken. But then we started having, a snack at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., a cup of tea and and a hot cross bun or a crumpet or something, and suddenly the weight started piling on a little bit, and I lost any routine when it came to training. I was just too busy trying to make the business survive and move everything online during COVID. And for the last few years, I've been saying I need to get back into a routine. And it's this year, I'm proud of myself. I'm patting myself on the back. And it's funny because I go to the gym and there's a couple of girls there that are pretty strong. And it's given me a kick up the backside. I'm like, hey, I'm not the strongest in the gym at the moment. I need to step up. I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this year I felt my strength just go up and up and up. And it's crazy how it can give you that empowering feeling. And I think it's really for me about trying to stay active and healthy now as I move into my more mature years, and keep helping other people to do that, because these symptoms, it's a bit like training when you're young. You have a period and it clashes with a competition. Get on with it. It is what it is. And I'm not saying we ignore the issues that women have. I think there's that big health gap between men and women. I mean, goodness me, if this was men dealing with some of these symptoms, I think things would have been addressed, wouldn't they? But at the end of the day, we can either suffer in silence or complain about it, or we can get on with it. And nothing, yes, medication and what have you can help. But at the end of the day, finding something positive like exercise, I think can make a huge difference to a lot of women. And my job now, I see, is to give those women confidence that when they hit that and they realize that actually, I want to lift weights and I don't know where to start, I'm hoping that people will start coming to me and saying, right, Mick, help me. Where do I get started? Teach me. And my job then is to really help people to learn the basics, teach them how to move well with a barbell, light weights. Weights will come later. And I've got people in their 60s still progressing with the weights and improving. And they're saying to me now, oh, I wish I'd known about this when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I think now it's about embracing where we're at. We can't look back. We can't regret. What we can do is look forward and say, right, let's hope that things progress from a medical point of view and a support point of view. But let's take ownership of this, and each and every one of us can do something positive to either help symptoms or just help lifestyle to be healthier later.
And what does adventurous aging mean for you personally, like looking ahead to your 60s or 70s? What are the kind of like maybe the 2 or 3 things that you are going to make sure that stay in your life that's going to help you? I don't know. What is your vision of how you want to age?
Well, I have 6-year-old twins and a 3-year-old little girl. So twin boys and a 3-year-old little girl. My vision has to be to keep up with them. Right now, it's to stay ahead of them. And look, I had one of my boys came in the gym, in the garage with me a few weeks ago. And I said to him, right, we're going to do this. And he joined me, and, we adapted everything so he could have a go. But there were little runs, only to the end of the cul-de-sac and back. It's maybe 300 or 400 meters. And I said to him before we did it, I said, right, when I say turn around, I might go a little bit further, but I'll catch you up. No, he was ahead of me, gone. I couldn't keep up with him. So for me, aging means, or my vision here is that I stay active so I can keep up with the kids. I do not want to be a parent that has to just watch. I want to get stuck in. I want to be able to go and climb Snowdon with them. I want to be able to go and just go camping and, be able to set up a tent and have fun. And for me, that's what it's about. And I think being a little bit more mindful of how much harder it is now to maintain body weight. So trying to eat a little bit cleaner and just being a little bit more conscious. But yeah, for me, I want to help other people as well. I don't just want to do this on my own. I want to be part of a journey with as many people as possible to support them to embrace what's coming.
Yeah. And one more thing, because going back to when you said you were 35 and you did quite well at 35 and you were training less than you had, how much has recovery protocols changed for you as you've got older? Do you think you use recovery more now, or you've got a different appreciation of that as you've got older?
I don't have the pressure anymore, which says you've got to train because you've got a competition coming up. If I am fatigued, if I am hurt, then I will back off. Simple as that. I do not hesitate to miss a session because my body says I need to recover. Or I'll go and do a session and sack off whatever exercises aggravate whatever issue I'm struggling with. And my goodness me, I'm recovering so much quicker from injuries, any niggles, because I'm letting my body recover. Whereas before, I would have pushed and pushed and pushed. Training 8 to 12 times a week, yeah, I did well, but I do think now, if I'd have backed off that, maybe I would have progressed further, because you don't get strong in the gym. You don't get strong from exercising. All you do in training is bust up your body. All you do in training is damage your muscle fibers. So if you imagine your muscle fibers are breaking because you're pushing, the way you get stronger is recovery, is sleeping, eating well, is maybe massage, stretching, hot cold therapy. There's lots of different recovery strategies that you could use. And it's that gets you stronger. So imagine your performance, your ability is, say, here. At the end of a training session, when you're fatigued, your ability is now dropped because you bust your body up, you're fatigued, you're exhausted. What happens then? So your body takes that deterioration, but then after training, it starts to build back up. And it doesn't just go back to where it was, it goes higher than that. And that is where you want to be training again. This is the super compensation. If you don't train, again, it will just come back to where it was and you've made no progress. But then at the same time, if you train and you bust your body up and you haven't fully recovered and you train again, you're going to have that negative spiral. So it's about understanding you as an individual, listening to your body. And I have learnt this through maturity only after I retired, because I was too afraid when I was an athlete to take time off. I was too afraid to give my body more recovery time. I felt like I needed to keep training. And I see this every time I'm coaching somebody. It's so obvious who is burning out, who is pushing and not making any progress. And yeah, I'm out of retirement, 3 sessions a week, and I broke my own British and Commonwealth records. Makes no sense, does it? It tells you something. So now I'm understanding that more is not best. Listening to your body is the way.
Yeah. And so your daughter is three now. So
3.
How would you hope the narrative for women's fitness and exercise is just like worlds apart from when I was younger and you were younger probably, but how would you like it to be? If you've got any vision for how you'd like it to be when she's like 16, because, another 13 years time, at the way things are going, who knows what will happen.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we don't just talk about my little girl. We talk about the boys here as well, because I would like to see that we're not having this conversation, that people are not isolating women and talking just about women. I'd like to think that as society, it's normal. Everybody is being treated fairly and equally, and there is the support for men and women. But I would like to think that my 2 sons and my daughter will see myself and my partner training, staying active, staying fit, staying healthy. I mean, we gave them an Easter egg early the other day, just a little one. Just a little Easter egg, and they each have one, and not one of them finished it.
Wow.
And we haven't said to them, don't eat it, or only eat half of it. No, we said, there's your Easter egg, you eat what you want. And all 3 of them went and found a tub and put the rest of it in, and they hadn't overindulged, but because they understand that too much sugar is not good for you. And they understand that exercise is good for you, and it's good to be out of breath. They all do park run, even little Nia. We might have told a little white lie with her age to get her in. They don't stop a kid that wants to run.
Yeah.
But as a former teacher, I was horrified at how many, particularly young girls, couldn't run 200 meters. I'm not talking sprinting, I'm talking jogging. And they couldn't get around 200 meters. It was awful. Whether that be obesity, whether that just be lack of fitness or whatever, that is absolutely not okay. It is not okay that a youngster, cannot manage a very short distance. And when I was teaching, I used to pull them to one side and say, it's good to be out of breath. It is okay. Like your lungs, you're working, and that is good. I want you blowing. I want you hot and sweaty. But stepping into that uncomfortable zone, a lot of young girls, a lot of women don't want to go there. And actually, it's necessary. It's okay to get a bit stinky and a bit sweaty, and, to be blowing, and for your hair to be a mess and what have you. And I think it's just breaking down those stereotypes and saying, you need to do the hard work to get the results. And I hope our young children keep pushing us for many, many years to come, and join in with us as well.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks so much for joining me on the Adventurous Ageing Podcast. Some great insights there. Thanks very much.
My absolute pleasure.